Hello everybody and welcome to Blue Jays Today Show, where today, guys, we're going to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays and the recent spring training updates and how that pitching rotation, that is looking very scary, as well as some other Blue Jay players that are showing up to camp today, and it's looking pretty lethal. We'll get into all the updates and more. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Palaylog, and we do this every single year. Not just us. Y'all are guilty as well. We're all guilty. But the train is starting to leave the station. The hype train, and it is getting people on board. I am one of those people. You are one of those people.
I am.
One thing I want to talk about a little bit later is should we be doing this? You know, because we do it every single season. That's after, of course, we break down all of the updates about why we need to be getting on this train to begin with. But it feels good that the team is making us feel good, right? Like, I don't feel like a bottom dweller right now when I'm getting all of these updates about everybody being elite, and when people are coming out and saying that this guy looks good and this guy's in the best shape of his life. And there are reasons to be excited here.
Yeah, and obviously, I'm going to say this just to blanket this whole video. Obviously, people are going to be talking about their own teammates and their own, managers talking about their own players as good, and they're looking good. So they're obviously going to hype them up to the media. But we can decide for ourselves on whether we think that this is warranted or not.
Well, let's start with what Chris Bassett had to say, everybody. Chris Bassett, absolutely incredible human being. Incredible on the mound as well. He came out and said that the Blue Jays, they have 7 MLB starters. And he quoted and said, if Ricky or Francis needs to start for us this year and they become our #1, I don't think anyone would be shocked. As crazy as that is, that's how good that's how good of stuff they have. That's how mature they are. 7 MLB starters.
Yeah.
Most teams, 5 is enough. In fact, a lot of teams...
they don't even have 5.
Yeah, like they're lucky if they get 5. Toronto Blue Jays, he's saying that we have 7. The depth in your pitching staff, if you have 7, is absolutely phenomenal. How are you feeling about what he just said there about Ricky, about Francis, about the pitching staff as a whole?
Well, I mean, we're going to definitely break it down in a bit more. I mean, to say that Ricky Tiedemann is a MLB starter, is that hype up my teammate, or is that actual fact? I think that's more hype up teammate because we haven't seen him pitch in a major league game. So that's my first thought there. Francis, however, has pitched in some major league games last year and is low-key under the radar this season, I think. That's the first guy I want to start with. But before we do, I just want to remind each other, like everybody in this chat, just how good the Blue Jays were last year. I mean, look, 4th in baseball in pitching, and we got carried by this pitching staff. So the fact that we got to double down on the pitching and have even more good quality starters on this team is very, very exceptional. Like, we need that because, look, we were healthy last year.
Yeah.
So having the depth of 7 is great.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, like, when you're looking back at that team, too, that was a team that really didn't have Alek Manoah at all. Or Alek Manoah was contributing to or to heightening that ERA, bringing it even higher than it was. I mean, you did have Hyun-Jin Ryu for a time. You had Hyun-Jin Ryu for a time. But you feel like the rotation this year, maybe this is a stretch, but, I mean, I feel like the rotation that we have walking into this season is better than it was last year.
I think so.
Right? Like, at this time, to start the year... Because when we were starting it last year, we were excited about it. But I'm feeling like this rotation is better than we were last year at this time.
Because you're looking at last year's rotation, you were still worried about Jose Barrios. You were worried about Yusei Kikuchi. I remember making a video in the offseason being like, Yusei is like actually bad, and the Blue Jays might be thinking about trying to get rid of him at some point.
Yeah.
And that was the conversation going into last offseason. Now, I think we were very hopeful, that he was going to bounce back, and he did. So right now we're going into this season with 4 good starters, some of them elite starters, right?
Totally.
With Kevin Gausman. We're honestly, Alek Manoah, the way we feel about Alek Manoah this season is what we're feeling about Yusei Kikuchi last season. We're kind of getting hyped a little bit, right? And then you had an emergence of Bowden Francis coming out of nowhere, and your #1 prospect getting a year older. And Bowden Francis is the guy I want to pivot to right here, because low-key, in 36 1/3 innings last year, most of them out of the bullpen. Some of them he did spot start here and there. He had an ERA of 1.73 and a whip of 0.826. Now, 27 years old, this guy is starting to enter into the prime of his athletic career. This is a guy that a lot of the players and people around the team are very excited about, and he could provide that depth that the Blue Jays much needed.
Well, I think I like Bowden Francis a lot because even though Chris Bassett is saying, well, maybe he could finish the year as our #1 guy, and obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration. Right. I think I'm most excited for him to come in and to do kind of what he did last year, right? When you do need somebody, when you do have, maybe you got back-to-back games, right? Like you had to move one, so you got a doubleheader going on, and you need some innings for somebody, or maybe somebody, like they hurt their wrist last game, and so they're going to be off for a week, and now you need somebody else. Well, Bowden Francis can be that guy, and he's shown that he can be very, very effective at that role too. You could even put him into the bullpen and make him be the long man if you wanted to, because he is stretched out right now to be a starter. All of the pitching coaches, Pete Walker, John Schneider, they've come out and they've really like talked this guy up. They've sung his praises, as well as Chris Bassett. So I'm excited for Bowden Francis, not to necessarily come in and be a starter, like if we need him to, sure, but I'm kind of excited for him to do exactly what he did last year, just more of it.
Yeah, he wasn't up to the Major League roster for most of the season last year. Like, he came up near the end, right? So I want to see a full season of Bowden Francis. And the same reason I'm excited about Yariel Rodriguez is the same reason why I'm excited about Bowden Francis, for the exact reasons that you just said. It never can hurt to have that option, especially the length. Coming out of the bullpen or having a spot start here and there, because the #1 thing is you got to keep this rotation healthy. They ate a lot of innings last year.
Yeah, they did.
And even though they're experienced rotation, like veteran guys, you still got to protect their arms. So if you need to protect their arms, maybe roll out a Bowden Francis or even a Yariel Rodriguez, right, at one point.
I think that's another great point too, right? Like Gausman was feasting on innings last year. Like this guy, it felt like every time that this guy hit the mound, like it was like 7, 8, maybe even 9 innings, and that's phenomenal. Like the fact that he can do that is absolutely incredible.
For sure.
But there is going to come a time as he gets older that it might not be so easy to go 8 every single time he's out, right? You might need to give this guy an additional day of rest every now and again. Having a Bowden Francis, that just allows you to do that. And he's not the only one in that role, because you brought up Yariel Rodriguez. Yariel Rodriguez is looking really, really good so far with the Toronto Blue Jays. He came out today, guys, and he said, I am very emotional and intense. I like playing with the hitter's head and their mentality. I'm very intense. Now, I would imagine that English isn't necessarily his first language, so maybe he just loves the word emotional and intense, but look at his goddamn face, dude. That is somebody that looks intense to me.
Yeah, I mean, throw him on the thumbnail, because I was looking at, who am I going to put here? And, like, just his stare was just awesome. Dude, look, again, same reasons why I like this guy. This guy has a little bit more, I guess, not to say that Bowden Francis doesn't have the upside to be a starter, because apparently Chris Bassett thinks so, like being a #1 starter, but this guy does have the upside for the Toronto Blue Jays as being a dominant starter. And what I love about him, and granted, I've seen a little bit of video of Bowden, maybe he's looking good too. What I love about Yariel Rodriguez, I love his delivery, and this is the first time we're going to see him in a Blue Jays uniform, but you see how he hides that ball so long going into his stretch. And that's what I love, because if he throws upper 90s, well, that upper 90 fastball is going to look like 100 to the hitter when he's hiding the ball for that long. There's so much to love about him. We know that a slider is gross. It's one of the best out there. I'm excited to see the upside. Now, what kind of role is he going to play for the Toronto Blue Jays? Well, I think he said it right here. He said he wants to be a starter. That's who I am, but he's willing to help the team any way we can. When we first signed him, we were kind of questioning what kind of role is he going to be. They wanted to bring him up as a starter, but obviously you see the rotation right now, it's pretty locked in. So if he can, at minimum, come up in a Bowden Francis type role at some point in the season, that's going to help the Toronto Blue Jays.
I think for sure that he's going to start some games this year. I'm going to talk more about him in a second. Just quick shout out to Michael Goodrich, who just gifted a Blue Jays Today membership. Shout out, guys. Thank you so much to everybody who's watching so far, who's subscribed, who's liked the channel. We appreciate all of y'all. Yariel Rodriguez, to me, I don't think that you're going to see him necessarily start in that rotation off the hop. I think that you got to lock in with the guys that you currently have, because you do have 5 starters who deserve to be there. Manoah, Gausman, Bassett, Yusei Kikuchi, and then obviously Jose Barrios. So that's going to be your starting 5. But I would not be surprised in the slightest if, as the season goes on, as people start to get worn out, maybe there's an injury, maybe somebody's not performing as they should, maybe they need a week off, right? I would not be surprised at all to see Yariel Rodriguez come in and start making those starts, guys. Like, I have no idea what his over-under line would be for how many starts that he's going to have, but I would project that he's probably going to end up with 5 or 6 or 7 starts at the end of the season, just based off of somebody needing a day off, somebody getting injured, you know, all of these things, they start adding up. Yariel Rodriguez, I think that he's going to be the first guy on that list to own that spot. And then maybe you have Bowden Francis there as well.
Yeah, you know, when I was thinking about Ryu, you know, last year when he was coming back from his Tommy John, if you were to ask me how many starts he's going to get, well, I was like, well, maybe we're going to transition Ryu to a bullpen role. And that was me thinking that everything was going to go right with the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. Alek Manoah wouldn't have the year he did, but he did. And there was a 5th spot open. So there is going to be at some point or another, whether we like it or not, there will be a spot opening due to injury, underperformance. And that's the beauty of having Bowden Francis and Yariel Rodriguez right there waiting in the wings, ready to go into that role.
And I think we've talked about this before, right? But when you're looking at that rotation and just all of the contracts on it, it feels like such a natural change to have Yariel Rodriguez start to take over that Yusei Kikuchi role, right? And I feel like if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you want to know that this guy's capable of doing that by the end of this season, right? You want to enter the offseason knowing, okay, Yariel Rodriguez started 6 games for us this year. He was solid. There is some stuff to work on, but we can walk in with him being our number 5 guy in 2025, right?
Sure.
And let Yusei Kikuchi walk. I think that that's something that these guys want to know, and I do anticipate that they're going to experiment with him getting that role at one point or another.
Now, we're talking right here that Yariel Rodriguez, I want to bring up a little discussion here. We're talking that Yariel Rodriguez is the next man up, but what if we go into the season and Bowden Francis, maybe he's already with the Jays in the pen. He's long. He's stretched out, right? What if he's just dominating? And Yariel right now is in AAA, maybe getting some work done. Because I know they said they floored with the idea of maybe starting him in AAA. Maybe grow him a little bit there. See if they can develop a pitch down there for him. If Bowden's ready to go, maybe Bowden steps in right away. You never know. It depends on how well these pitchers are doing and how the development is going.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Bowden Francis start a game or two. Like, as we were talking about him, I do think that all of the praise that's coming out about him, it's making me feel a little bit better about that possibility happening.
Right.
I think that when they were selling Yariel Rodriguez on this team and the amount that he's come out and talked about it, like, they had to include that in the pitch. Because if you're Yariel Rodriguez, just think about it this way, right? If you have this meeting with the Toronto Blue Jays, and in the meeting, they go, yeah, sorry, we're not going to make you a starter. Bowden Francis is actually the guy. Like, you're not going to be up for us. That if you're Yariel Rodriguez, you're not coming out to the media and saying, I want to be a starter. This is the role that I wanted to. Like, that would be such a terrible look for this new team. So I do think that they probably talked to him about it and said, okay, listen, be patient with us. Your time is going to come. We are going to get you there eventually. And I think that might have been one of the selling points for him. And that's why he's really hammering the point home and going, this is what I want to do, you know?
Yeah, because he knows, he's very well aware that the Blue Jays have a very full rotation right now. So, yeah, maybe he is pitching for that, like, next man up, that 6-man kind of role, just hammering it in. And he's got to prove it too, right? He's got to prove it when he goes to AAA. If they decide to start him there, he's got to prove that he's willing to do the work down there.
Exactly, right? And he's also got to factor in, we got a pretty damn good prospect in that role as well. Ricky Tiedemann is turning a few heads at spring training right now. We all knew that we were excited about this guy to begin with. Everybody knew that this is literally our top prospect. He should be really good at baseball. He was hitting 96 in his first outing right now. He's throwing to Danny Jansen. 96 on the radar gun. Apparently, everybody was saying that his stuff looked absolutely phenomenal. Ricky Tiedemann also apparently had a phenomenal offseason. I don't know if this is true or not. 19 pounds of muscle. Now, that is an insane amount of muscle to add on. But that's the word around camp right now, is that this guy is coming in possibly the best shape of his entire life, feeling good, throwing hard. I mean, I'm starting to think that there's a real chance that we see this guy in the MLB this year, man.
There could be. I mean, hey, like, we're talking about Francis being the next guy up. We're talking about Yariel Rodriguez. I mean, in Chris Bass's quote to start off this video, like, he didn't even mention, Chris Bass didn't even mention Yariel Rodriguez. He literally mentioned Ricky Tiedemann. Like, he's already a guy ready to walk in, right? And, I mean, Pete Walker talked about him, too. I'll throw this into the conversation. Pete Walker talked about Ricky Tiedemann, saying he's still maturing, for sure, even though Chris Bassett said he is very mature, which I no doubt he probably is. Ricky Tiedemann, he's still maturing. He's a young kid that's still growing. He looks extremely strong. I've seen his sides a lot, his BP, it looks great. He's going to get his opportunities to pitch. So that, for me, that line right there, where he's going to get his opportunities to pitch, is talking about the major leagues,
Yeah.
Maybe. He's definitely talking about AAA. Absolutely. I think he starts out in AAA. He's going to be the guy right there, ready to go.
Yeah. You don't start him out right now. There's too many other guys in that rotation to start him out right now.
So for me, I love Ricky Tiedemann, and maybe because he is a prospect, and maybe because I see the Toronto Blue Jays protecting their prospects a lot, and because they have such already a depth of starting pitching talent, where do you see Ricky Tiedemann getting an opportunity to pitch in the big leagues? Like, what needs to happen for him to actually get that chance?
Well, okay, there's a few different things. First off, and this is something that we haven't discussed yet, Ricky Tiedemann has got to show the Toronto Blue Jays that he's capable of handling a lot of innings. Because last season, he didn't really get the workload that everybody hoped for, okay? And they actually talked about this. They said that we would have wanted him to pitch more last year. It didn't happen for him, a variety of reasons. So I think that they need to, or he needs to immediately show these guys, like, hey, I'm fully healthy. I can handle these innings. Yeah. You know, he goes out, he pitches a month or two in AAA, and he's still feeling 100%. That's step one. Number two, there's a few different ways of looking at this, because one, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe if there's a hole in the rotation, there's automatically a spot right there, right? Maybe somebody gets hurt, or potentially there's a really bad performance. Maybe there's a spot right there. Alternatively, there's another way of looking at this. What if all 5 of our guys are elite? What if all 5 are elite? What if Yusei Kikuchi is elite? and you're getting close to trade deadline. Maybe this is fantasy land, but you're getting close to trade deadline. All 5 of our guys are elite. Yusei Kikuchi's on a 1-year deal. We're missing out on something else. If Ricky Tiedemann is popping off in AAA, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but I think that the conversation then opens up to saying, okay, well, maybe we can afford to move Yusei Kikuchi to another contending team that potentially needs a pitcher. We need a third baseman. We need something else. Maybe there's an option there. There's 2 different ways of looking at this here. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I think that that would at least open the door, open the conversation for him to potentially get up here.
I could see that in a reality. I think maybe I find it hard that they would trade like a Yusei Kikuchi if he is doing really well.
Because I think you need to have another area of need, though.
You need to have something desperate. It would have to. It's one of those MLB The Show kind of trades where it's like it just works out perfectly and you make it happen. Because like if I'm seeing the Blue Jays rotation, you trade away like a guy who's doing well, then it might be kind of like questionable. Unless, of course, it's like you're getting Nolan Arenado back in return or some shit. You know what I mean?
Well, like, I think that like when you're looking at this team. And when you're looking at the surplus of people right now, like we're all talking and we're saying, oh, well, there's got to be a trade in the infield because we have a surplus of people. Right. Why is that conversation not happening about the pitchers? We have a surplus of pitchers. Yep. If we're making the same argument about all of these infielders, then I think that same argument to an extent could potentially be moved over to these pitchers. You're not going to trade any of the other guys, but Yusei Kikuchi on a 1-year deal, if you have the luxury to do so. There's a possibility. That's all I'm saying.
I hear you. Could it be the fact that like these infielders are just kind of not keeping Bo and Vlad out of this conversation, just the rest of the infielders are kind of just like, and Justin Turner, I'm throwing him out of this conversation. They're kind of just like, I hate to use this word, but almost expendable in a way where they're roster transferable. You know, like you wouldn't feel the impact as much. Whereas whereas an impactful starter you might.
Yeah. But granted, I mean this isn't fully coming out of left field. We've heard Yusei Kikuchi's name
for sure
pop up a few times this offseason.
Right.
We've heard him come up from a few analysts, from a few people. His name has popped up before. I mean, again, I do think that that's probably the lesser of 2 possibilities for him to come up to the MLB. But I'm not going to completely rule it out. I think that there is an actual reality where the Toronto Blue Jays, they're getting the trade season. They're looking at their rotation. They're saying, Ricky Tiedemann's phenomenal. We want to get him up here. We do have all of these guys. We need somebody in the lineup. Maybe we move one of those dudes to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. Another way I could possibly see Ricky getting up. I mean, look, the number one thing for Ricky, like, I think Pete Walker puts it the best. When he says he's still maturing and he's still growing, I think he's referring to not only maybe his mental, but also I think his ability to perform at a major league level. Because, again, like we're saying, he pitched 44 innings in minor leagues last year, 18 in fall leagues. So we put it together, it's only 60 innings last year, right? So I think he needs to grow that arm strength, because if he pitches in AAA, maybe he pitches 60 innings down there. Maybe bring him up in the second half if there's a job for him available. pitches another 60 up here. I don't know if that'd even be possible to the bullpen, unless he starts. There's just some sort of way where it makes sense where you can get that total up to like 120, like double his kind of workload, because you don't want to see him go 180 right away, which they never would. But if there's a way where it makes sense, the Blue Jays need aligns with his also development, I can see that working as well.
Yeah, and I think that he's really showing a lot of people that this offseason especially, again, if the reports are true, but this guy putting on 19 pounds of muscle, I mean, we got major leaguers here in the past who have walked in and who've done effectively, you know, to what we're seeing, not a whole lot in the offseason. Yeah. I think that it's showing a level of maturity for Ricky Tiedemann right now. He's never even come to the MLB. He is putting in the work this offseason and saying, I want to be here. He's showing that he wants to be here from his performance so far in spring training and from the way that he's entering camp. So, again, it's not guaranteed, but there is a strong possibility, I think, that this guy could potentially come to the show this year.
And there's a chance. You know, they can't write him off. I mean, David Schneider came to the show, and we didn't even know who he was, you know, at this point last year.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys, real quick shout-out to the next part of this video. But before we do, we're going to give a little shout-out to the sponsor of this video.
Whoa! Time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal. If you were a betting person, that you might want to look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He showed up to camp today, and I mean, just like as everybody's been saying, the kid looks really good. He does look really good. And, I mean, he took some BP, and it looked phenomenal. And so the question now is, are we fooling ourselves again? Are we fooling ourselves again? Because there have been a lot of comments, you know, coming out on not even just what we're saying, but what the Toronto Blue Jays are saying, what other creators are saying, effectively throwing us back to last year and saying this exact same conversation happened last year. Everybody said, oh, Guerrero looks good. Guerrero looks good. He lost weight this offseason. He's coming in looking fit. The swing looks nice. And this isn't the first time it's happened. It feels like every offseason we jump back on the Guerrero hype train and we say, this year, this is going to be different. This is the year that he hits his potential. This is the year that he shows why he's on the cover of MLB The Show. Are we fooling ourselves again, or is there true reason to believe that he does look good?
I mean, he looks good in terms of his body looks good. Some people are, I mean, someone in the chat saying he looks fat, which I think if you go look at his training videos and you compare it to last year, I think you would be wrong in that conversation. I think he physically looks great, and obviously you're supposed to look physically great coming into every spring training, right? If you don't, then you're not really doing your job as a professional athlete, especially with baseball. When baseball is such a long sport where you are playing 6 out of 7 days every single week. Hell, even some weeks, you're playing like 2 weeks straight of baseball. You don't have time to go to the gym. You're flying around. You're not eating right. You're just trying to grab a meal before you're going to the diamond. You're on the diamond all the time. So it's more of a war of attrition as a ball player. So you have to look good coming into spring training, because if you don't, you've started a place where you're not good, you're going to end up even worse. And that's what we saw Vladimir Guerrero Jr. the last couple of years end up in a place that was even worse, where he felt like he was running out of gas. So this, for me, is a good sign that he's built up the stamina, he's built up the strength to endure a 162 season. Now, how will he do in that time? That is yet to be seen.
You know, John Schneider came in and was talking about Guerrero a little bit, and again, like, he's always going to say this. This is just like what you have to do as manager, but he did say that he looks great. He said, you know, the old best shape of your life spring training, but I mean, he put a ton of work in. I love the way he looks. I love the way he prepared. And, you know, that's what really good players do. They take ownership of everything in the off season. And it does feel like, and I think this is why, to cycle it back to what I started off here discussing, talking about, is this off season different? Are we getting ourselves back on this train and we're fooling ourselves again, or is this real? I think that this offseason specifically, and entering into training camp, you are hearing a lot of the best shape of your life is what these players are walking into camp as, right? And I think that that's not necessarily something that we've heard. Alek Manoah, we didn't even bring him up this video so far. But obviously, like, that guy looks phenomenal. Guerrero, looking phenomenal. Ricky Tiedemann, looking phenomenal. Yariel Rodriguez looking really, like, there's so many players that were on the roster that we were kind of counting out a little bit, getting down on. they're coming in and looking like they could be potentially, as John Schneider says, in the best shape of your life. And I feel like that is why this training camp right now, this offseason, and this hype train that we're getting ourselves on right now, maybe it's different than years prior.
Hey, look, I want to hop on the hype train, and I'm absolutely gonna hop on the hype train for this season. I just need to see something on the field first before I start to really believe. Like, if I'm seeing spring training baseball and Vladdy, his exit velo is looking really good. It's in the hundreds. He's looking really good. If I'm seeing Ricky Tiedemann, he's painting the corners at 98. And same with, Manoah, he's painting the corners at 94. And that slider's looking nasty. It's fooling hitters. I need to see the results. And yeah, if I don't see the results, I got to do the same thing, right? If I don't see the results, am I going to go, oh God, they're awful? No. If I do see the results of them doing well, am I going to go, oh God, they're amazing? No, I just got to see a sample size. Give me a treat of what this could be, and then I got to see a full 162. I got to start seeing it happening and playing in front of me.
Yeah, of course, right? You can only get so far when you're just looking at the highlights and the batting practice, and don't get me wrong, it all looks really good right now. We're going to learn a lot about this team in the month of April. But then again, are we? Because
here's the thing, last April,
I know.
Chapman.
I just said that, and then I remembered last April, and last April we looked like the scariest team in baseball.
Right.
And then all of the wheels started falling off. So baseball's a long goddamn season. Baseball's a long goddamn season. So I'm really excited, at the very least, that all of these players right now are entering into camp, entering into what's going to be spring training come this Saturday.
Oh yeah.
In a shape that should allow them the best chance possible to stay healthy and to stay energized for 162 games.
Baseball's such a long season, Bo Bichette had a great year last year, front to back, right? But do you remember the year before, it's very similar numbers, where he was started off awful.
Yeah.
He was awful. And then right at the last second half, he turned on. He was another level. He won Player of the Month in September. Like, he was unreal, ended up with the same stats, right? So that's why when you look at a stat line, you don't know when they were hot or how they got hot or when they got their hits or when they got their home runs or when they got their walks. It's a long season. What I need to see is their approach, the details of the game, painting the fastball in the outside corner. When Robbie Ray was with the Blue Jays, kind of getting off topic, but kind of not. When I knew Robbie Ray was going to be up there for Cy Young was when he started out in spring training and his fastballs, he was pumping them up and in.
Yeah.
He didn't care. Up and in. Consistency. Fastball, 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 fastball. Where are the sliders? On the righties, back foot, back foot, back foot, back foot. It was consistent. And I said on our streams, this guy's going to have an incredible season, and he won Cy Young. So we need to see something similar. If they see something similar from Alek Manoah, Cy Young's coming. But you need to see an effort on the details early. If you can see that, that's good effort.
100%, dude. 100%. So there's a lot of stuff to look out for come spring training, which is happening this Saturday. By the way, folks, we're going to be live for this Saturday's game and this Sunday's game. Those are the first two Toronto Blue Jays spring training games. We are definitely not going to miss them, folks. So you want to be here at 1 p.m. in the afternoon. I brought it up earlier in this stream. We were talking about a Yusei Kikuchi trade from the starting pitching. I mean, still, like that's a long ways away, guys. That is a long ways away. But there are a lot of talks right now about the infield, potentially shipping someone off there. You bring in Escobar, you bring in Vogelbach. Both of them have infield eligibility. You already had IKF, Justin Turner, Guerrero. You're not going to trade Guerrero, obviously, but he's obviously owning a spot in there. Yep. Davis Schneider, Kevin Biggio, Santiago Espinal. I mean, like, the list feels like it is forever long right now. So many guys there, and so many dudes who deserve at-bats, deserve time at the major league level. It feels like these Toronto Blue Jays are, as Shai Davidi would put it, poised for a trade before opening day. That's what he had to say. What are your thoughts on the Toronto Blue Jays potentially being poised to make a trade before opening day? I have a lot of thoughts about it. I posted a video about this literally yesterday. You go first, then I'll give my 2 cents.
Well, here's the thing. They absolutely could make a trade before opening day. I mean, they got a ton of depth on their team to have the option to make a trade. Now, here's the thing. We haven't seen these guys yet. So, like, just the same argument we're talking about before of, like, oh, is Vladdy going to be a breakout? Well, we don't know yet, right? You can't bank on anything, right? So, bringing in all these depth guys and signing guys like IKF and bringing in Escobar, bringing in Vogelbach, these are just options, right? You got to see what they do in spring training. You got to see how they're looking. If Espinal, for example, who we've been writing off for this entire offseason saying he's a great trade bait. He's a great trade bait. Let's get rid of him. Let's trade him. What if he starts out spring training looking like incredible? Yeah, he's in a great shape, but also he shows up and he's putting up quality at bats. He's having a 100-mile-per-hour exit velo. I'm just throwing out fantasy land right here, but what if he starts to look like he deserves playing time? We don't know that. Until the players start playing, we don't know that. So, with that being said, I think that, yes, they could make a trade before opening day. Absolutely an option. But why don't we wait and see what happens first when the games roll out? What if a guy gets injured? You need a replacement. Okay, you have that depth there. You're allowing yourself, by bringing all these guys in, to have options. You have options. So let's wait a little bit, see how the season rolls out before we start making trades and assuming a guy is one thing or another.
Yeah, I mean, I think what Shai Davidi said there, he said that we're poised to make a trade before opening day. And what that means is that the door is open. You could do it. That doesn't mean that they're gonna, right? There's gonna be a lot of people, a lot of analysts, a lot of other content creators saying that a trade is imminent, a trade is incoming right now, like it's gonna happen. I don't really buy that. I think that by going out and by getting Escobar, by getting Vogelbach, you have given yourself the opportunity to make a trade if you need to, if you want to later down the line. That doesn't mean that you have to do it, right? Just because you have some money burning a hole in your pocket doesn't mean that the right thing to do right now is to spend it immediately. You know, maybe you want to hold on to that bullet. And that's another thing that Shai Davidi was talking about when he was literally on our podcast the other day, and we spoke to him one-on-one, saying that the Toronto Blue Jays, they like having these options. They want to be versatile. They want to be able to roll out a lineup where the main focus is we're dealing with ground balls, or the main focus is we're hitting for contact, or the main focus is we're all speedsters, we're going to run the bases really well, right? They want to be able to do that, and by having all of these players, Espinal and Schneider and Biggio and IKF and Turner and everybody, it gives you, it provides you the option right now to really play. You know, you lock in the top three, you make it Springer, Bo, Guerrero, but then everybody else, we are moving. We're staying versatile right now. Nobody can game plan for us because we're always changing it. And I think that the Blue Jays, like, they do like that. We've seen John Schneider do stuff like that before. And holding on to these guys and waiting on a trade until trade deadline, when then you know, okay, well, we need a setup man, or, oh, shit, like, not working out at third base. Right. Or, uh-oh, somebody's injured in the outfield. Now you have the bullet to get that done.
Well, what if you get to the trade deadline and you have all these guys on your bench? You know, you got Schneider, you got Espinal, you got Biggio. What if they're all doing well, you know, in their limited playing time? Right. Okay, well, now this makes more sense to trade one off if they're not going to get the playing time. Give two of them great playing time. Trade one off and get that setup man or whatever the hell you're going to need at that point.
I'll tell you
reassess.
Right now, that argument right there, I just want to cycle back. That's the same argument I made for Yusei Kikuchi. Are you turning around on that?
No, because here's I'm not. Because Yusei Kikuchi, right, he's got guaranteed playing time, right? Because these guys don't. Right? You have a guy on a bench who's going to get 180, 200, 250, maybe at bats, right? Maybe. You got to get him to another team, get a team who has got value, and you're not going to lose that much. Whereas Yusei Kikuchi, you're missing a whole fifth start.
Okay, potential. Agree to disagree there, but I do think that you make a good point saying that, yeah, if all three of these guys are doing well, I mean, now you can sell high. And right now, it's like if you were to trade one of these dudes, let's say you trade Espinal, I mean, you're trading low here. You're not going to get anything major back. What are we bringing into the team that's going to, you know, save the day here? A minor league bullpen guy? Maybe, right? Like, it's not like we're going to be getting a whole lot.
Low-end bullpen guy, maybe,
exactly.
You know?
You know, so it's like I feel like if you're the Toronto Blue Jays right now, you have Escobar and you have Vogelbach, and you're bringing those dudes in as a way to allow yourself to do this later, or as insurance if one or more of those guys, Biggio and Schneider and Espinal, maybe they're just all on the other side of things terrible this year. Maybe they just all suck.
There you go.
Guess what? We got Eduardo Escobar waiting in the wings in the minor league system. At the very least, we know that guy can play at an MLB level.
Yeah, if he pops off in the minor leagues, okay, well, let's call him up. You know, and that's the thing, too, is you don't have to start this guy in your 40-man. You can just send him right down to the minor leagues right away. So if you do that, hell, if he's popping off and you're struggling, look what we saw last year. We were struggling to get offense on our team, and we called up David Schneider because he was popping up. So the same thing could happen. But I agree that we should probably wait, see what happens before we make any, like, you know, trades.
Yeah. So Culmination, folks, in conclusion, this team looks filthy. The pitching staff looks phenomenal. There's 7 MLB-ready starters, according to Chris Bassett. And even though the Toronto Blue Jays, they might be rumored or poised to make a trade before opening day, doesn't mean that they're going to. First spring training game this Saturday. We're going to be live for it, folks. There's a lot to be excited about if you were a Toronto Blue Jays fan right now, especially this rotation, dude. It was so nice having a top 5 rotation last year. And I'm feeling... honestly, really good that it's going to happen again.
I feel better, because what was the argument? Oh, well, what if some guys regress? Well, Bowden Francis looks good, Yariel looks good, and Ricky T could come up. So it's 3 guys needed to be coming in, whereas last year we only had Ryu.
Yeah.
Like, now we have 3 guys.
That's the thing, yeah. Right? Honestly, like, worst possible case scenario right now, like, a lot of the guys in our starting rotation already suck. Well, at the very least, you got 3 guys ready to take that spot and give it their best shot.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. We're fine, guys. Guys, let us know in the comments down below, what do you think about all of these conversations? Do you think the Blue Jays are going to be scary in the pitching side of things? And what about the offense? Because obviously, we have yet to see how that's going to do.
Thank you so much for watching, everybody. And as always, go Jays, go!